Welcome to a moment of clarity, everyone. These conversations are designed to support you and help you understand our ever-evolving real estate landscape. Today, I'm joined by a trusted colleague of mine, Victoria from Vancouver. Hi, Vic.
Hi, Stephen.
Just so you all know, personally and professionally, I really appreciate and respect Victoria, as she's not only a friend of mine, but we actually have a weekly accountability call every Tuesday to make sure that we continue growing and work to provide as much value to you, our customers, as we possibly can. And with value and service in mind, last week, Victoria and I plan to record 2 videos for you. Today, we're going to share what we're seeing happen in our respective markets, both in Vancouver and Toronto, since the pre-COVID time, post-COVID, or well, during post the arrival of COVID time. And then we're going to record another video in a couple weeks to discuss April's market realities. And then we're going to close each video by sharing a recent transaction or approach which you can apply to make sure that you and your families stay safe and can still participate in real estate. So Vic, why don't you take it away and tell us what's happening in Vancouver?
Absolutely. Thanks again, Stephen, for having me here. I really appreciate this opportunity to share some insights about my market, and I look forward to hearing things from your end as well. So March here started as some of the busiest days of the year for Greater Vancouver. There was steady demand and increased multiple offers. I myself was part of a few multiple offer scenarios. It quickly leveled off as concerns about the pandemic intensified, and the lockdown was implemented around mid-March. The total residential home sales was 2,524, and this was a 46% increase actually from last year, and a 17% increase from February. However, that said, last year was particularly slow, so the overall number was still about 20% below the 10-year March average here in BC. Greater Vancouver, I should say. The average price sold per square foot in March was $707. This was a 4% increase from March 2019, which was $679 per square foot. Many of the sales in March were already in process before the government declared a state of emergency, so we will still be seeing the full effect of the pandemic on the housing market in the months to come. In fact, we've already seen a steep decrease in April so far, and we will be discussing that in a separate video. But the BC REA has just released a forecast stating that home sales will probably fall 30 to 40% in April, with low sales volume to come in the summer months. Keep in mind, this is sales numbers, not 30% drop in prices. No one can predict that, of course.
Yeah, none of us have that crystal ball, right?
No.
So when we look at the Toronto market, our average condo price was up 18% year over year in March to a little over $700,000, and the average detached was 1.46, up 15.4%, similar to you, primarily driven by the first 2 months of the first 2 weeks of March, the pre-COVID time, as the Toronto Real Estate Board is dubbing it. Those first 14 days accounted for 58% of our total transactions, which represents a 49% increase compared to the first 14 days of March 2019. And then when we look at the second 14 days, not surprisingly, we were down 15.9% in transactions compared to March of 2019. When we look at listings, we were up 3% year over year in March. What was our final number? 14,424. But similar to transactions, new listings dropped on a year over year basis during the second half of the month by 18.4%. As you know, before we started recording, I was sharing that in my Instagram March market report I wrote, as physical distancing continues, I believe sales and listing numbers will be down substantially. And not surprisingly, like you alluded to, similar to Vancouver, in Toronto, our first 2 weeks of April illustrated just that, with transactions down 69% and listings down 63.7%. However, similar to Vancouver as well, our selling price has remained it's relatively robust and remained more or less the same, only down 1.5%. So with all of those numbers in mind, what are you doing for your buyers and sellers to keep them safe and allow them to continue to participate in real estate?
Well, Stephen, real estate does remain an essential service. And of course, there are people who have to move in every market. So some of the precautions that we're following for my listing, I'll talk about that, is we have some indemnity documents. So we have a mandatory health questionnaire for any buyers coming through. We do have indemnity documents for the buyer's realtor, as well as any third parties such as building inspectors, photographers. That is because the insurance does not cover for illness or disease transmission while we're working. So that's just a general rule. I am implementing some virtual solutions to show my home. So all my listings, in addition to photos and floor plans, are now featuring a full HD video tour, including some drone footage so you can have an idea of how the neighborhood is like. I have a 3D Matterport tour and live stream open houses, and I am advertising those online. So
I love the live stream open house. I tuned into it last weekend.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
No, it was great. I like it. I love the interactive dynamic of it as well. When you talk about pricing, this is a question we didn't talk about before, but how is your seller approaching COVID, and how they want the price point they ultimately want to list their property at, and how are you approaching it?
Well, that is a good question. Pre-COVID, we were marketing at listing at market value rather, and now we're starting to see a slowdown in certain areas. So there is some price adjustment that will be coming this way, and I think it's important to stay on top of the recent sales and really stay ahead of the curve. So we don't want any listings lagging and just piling up on the market.
It's interesting you say that, because when you have the listing side, my most recent transaction, as you know, was a purchase about 8 days ago. It actually just went firm earlier this week. However, we ultimately negotiated a deal where we took nearly 10% off the original list price and had purchased the property conditional prior to my buyer ever stepping foot in the premise. And that was in order to protect both the buyer and the seller. We're all potential vectors of transmission. So our goal was to let's iron out all of the details. So we had the property purchased, the price, conditional on inspection, status, financing, and then we actually negotiated a longer deposit than I've ever had in my real estate career. I think we didn't pay the deposit for 4 days. So it was after our inspection, because it was during the Easter weekend. So
Congratulations on the deal.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited for my client. It was a good buy. And it'll be interesting to see how the market continues to evolve. If people can see light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. It's again, in every market, people are moving. And I think there are opportunities for sure. If your buyers are in a position where they're ready to buy, they have their financing down, they're still working, there could be some really great opportunities in this market.
Well, I think that's good for now. I'll see you. Well, I'll talk to you Tuesday, and I look forward to recording in a week. I also look forward to seeing how this whole thing turns out.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Stephen. Stay safe.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you so much, Victoria. So much more plump.